נח אנחנו מקשר עצמי לכל הצדיקים האמיתים שלנו, לכל הצדיקים האמיתים שוכני אף הקדושים שבארץ המה. ובבחר רבנו הקדוש צדיק יסוד עולם נחמן ומקור חוכמה רבנו נחמן פגים את שמחה. נחמן נאום על זכותו תגן עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמן. Okay. Do this week's Parasha. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, Parashat Shoftim essentially has a ton of mitzvot. It speaks about a lot of the laws a person has to go through with whenever a person goes to Bedin because of improper business and stuff like that. When you get in a fight with someone else about business, loans, this, that, money, all those doubts and lack of clarity has to be brought to the Bedin. And then you're going to hash it out with the Bedin and see which person's right, essentially. Now, Rebbe Nathan already says at the beginning, anyone who has to go to Bedin has fallen into pagam of emunat. Why? Because automatically, one person is wrong. You cannot have two people, there's no two emets. Rabbeinu says you cannot call emet. You cannot take a book and say it's emet that this is a book and it's emet that this is a notebook. It's not a notebook, it's a book. Or you cannot say that this phone is a computer. That's sheker. So emet is one. Gold is gold, silver is silver. You cannot say gold is silver. So of course, whenever a person goes to business and there's a what do you call it? There's a fight, or there's a this or there's that. He says this and the other person says that. Who's the one who's right? And of course, by the fact that there's an argument in the first place, then there's a pagam and emunat somewhere along the line. You know, there's a pagam and emunat somewhere. So if there's a pagam and emunat, we have to find that what? How do you rectify it? How do you rectify this pagam and essentially rectify the situation? Now, of course, that's the first part. That's just one mitzvah. There's just the mitzvah at the beginning with regard to business, going to Bedin, and of course all these other things. Now, of course, the Arizal has a beautiful explanation which we're going to hop into, but the first line of Shoftim. You have to place officers and guards, judges, at all your gates. Oh, what's the inyan? What does that mean? I mean, the Arizal brings down this idea of plural. What's happening here with this idea of plural? Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol she'arecha. The Arizal is going to bring up a question that we're going to enter later that has perfectly to do with the subject which we're going to involve in, which is on a specific pasuk in this week's parasha. It's a very special pasuk, and it's a pasuk that Rabbeinu uses a lot actually. Also discussing other mitzvot in this week's parasha. We're going to discuss one or two and connect them together. But to the very famous pasuk, and this is the famous pasuk that Rabbeinu expounds a lot to prove the inyan of emunat chachamim, faith in the sages, which is the subject essentially for tonight, and it's going to go much deeper into places where we're going to finish off about how a person cannot associate himself with black magic. He cannot do black magic. He cannot do things based on omens and signs essentially of what do you call it? Things that are from evil essentially. You cannot go to people that can do cards and all these inyanim that the Torah speaks about. Palm readers, all this stuff. Of course, if it's not from Kedusha, all that stuff is completely asur deoraita. And Rebbe Nathan's going to bring about why people do that in the first place, why goyim do that in the first place, and how a Jew who falls there is only because he lacks clarity, and why a Jew who entered into Avodat Hashem and a Jew who actually wants to serve Hashem, the clarity, the non-clarity, it doesn't matter. The decision you make, whether it's this or that, doesn't matter. That's the chidush of tonight that we're going to finish off at the end. How a person makes sure his decision is good according to Hashem. Because that's, by the way, that's our question from the second we wake up to the second we go to sleep. Is the decision I'm making good? Should I go to the restaurant or not tonight? Should I go to work at this hour or that hour? Should I miss Minan to go visit this person? I'm saying random questions and things that you come about that you don't know where the emet or the sheker is. Now, of course, if it's going against halacha, there's different things. But what if it's very gray? Do I marry this girl or that girl? You know what I mean? Do I go on a date with this girl? Should I speak to someone who bothers me or something? I might get angry. I'm saying random examples here, but the fact that we lack so much clarity, we have to understand where that stems from. And actually how to get comfortable with the lack of clarity and understanding that it's not about the clarity or not the clarity. It's about what the purpose of what you're doing is, which we're going to discuss at the end and how it connects to this idea. So, Rabbeinu says, and he brings from the verse, and this is a verse that we say all the time, verse 11 of chapter 17 of Sefer Dvarim, Parashat Shoftim. על פי התורה אשר יורוך ועל המשפט אשר אמרו לך תעשה. According to the Torah that they teach you, that you will be taught, and according to the law that they will tell you to do, that they will tell you, you have to do. Meaning, you have to follow the Torah and the laws that it tells you. לא תסור מן הדבר אשר יגידו לך ימין ושמאל. You shall not stray from the matter that it tells you left or right. Now, the Sifri, the Midrash, brings down that what? אפילו אם יגידו לך, even if they tell you, the tzaddik tells you, the Talmid Chacham tells you, that left is right and then right is left, תאמין לו, believe him. אפילו אומר לך על ימין שהוא שמאל ועל שמאל שהוא ימין, look what Rashi says, וכל שכן כשהוא אומר לך על ימין ימין ועל שמאל שמאל. You have to believe, you have to do whatever the Chacham tells you, even if he tells you right is left and left is right, and all the more so if he tells you right is right and left is left. So all the more so if he's right, but even if he tells you that what he's telling you might seem wrong, you still have to believe it. There's an entire story about this in the Nevi'im, I forget who, but Rabbeinu brings this down to Chaim Moran to teach you the power of emunat chachamim. That there was a person who had a very special sickness. I think he had tzarat or something like that. And in order to get healed from the tzarat or something, he needed to go down. He asked the Navi at the time. He asked the prophet at the time what he should do. And the Navi told him essentially go dip in the Yarden 7 times. I forget who it was. I think it was a king. Came to the Navi. I forget who. But he came and he didn't believe the Navi because he thought it was too simple. After all the sin that he did, the damage that he did, I forget what he got, but he got something that was a very big damage for the sin that he did. He knew he was getting really badly punished. And he said, I'm not going to go dip in the Yarden 7 times. It's too easy to get out of it. There's no way that it's that. I didn't believe him. Until at one point, someone told him, why don't you listen to him and do it? And he went to do it and he was completely healed. And the entire idea is that what? Even if the Chacham tells you something simple, it's because he's attained a level where he can get you to that place by doing something small to repair it. Of course, because the tzaddik also accepts upon himself a lot of the tshuva in Israel. As Rabbeinu says, the tzaddik is forced to do tshuva on behalf of the Jewish people, which is why he accepts upon himself the hit. Because we know what? When we have pain, Hashem Yitbarach has pain, right? So it's like imagine what? You know, the horse isn't running. Rabbeinu brings this parable in the lesson in Likutei Moharan. Imagine you're running a horse, right? You don't have a whip. You're riding a horse, and the horse is not cooperating with you. You're trying to tie him to the tree, and he's running. He's kicking you in the head. He's doing all these things, right? So what? You're gonna smack the horse with your hand, but who's gonna get hurt from it? You, because you're hitting your hand against the horse. So not only are you hitting the horse, you're hitting you. And the fact that he has pain, I have pain. You're losing out also, just by hitting it. Mm-hmm. The same is true with tzaddik. The tzaddik too also has the pain because he's accepting upon himself your sin. So when we say Hashem Yitbarach, yeah, I have pain, Hashem also has pain. You think Hashem wants to see you in pain? And the same is true with the tzaddik. You think the tzaddik wants to see you in pain because he's accepting upon himself the mitzvah to do teshuvah for you, because he's accepted upon himself partly the responsibility of your sin. That's what Rabbeinu says. What? Forget about the past. The main thing is now stop what you're doing. Stop what you did before. Stop the bad thing that you were doing. Forget about what you did. Okay, do tshuva on it. But stop and move on. Just now don't do it. The tzaddik will do that. What's behind. With all the rectification that he can do, he'll help you out, you know?
He'll dig.
Huh?
He'll dig, you're saying?
Yeah, he'll dig, exactly. He'll go for the lost items. He'll help you. Mm-hmm. He'll bring you the rectification you need. What you need to do is to stop. Sur mera, get removed from evil, and then v'asetov, and then do good.
And just listen to it.
Of course, and listen. That's the main thing that we're going to talk about. So, of course, from the Torah, from here, from the verse in Shoftim, it's according to the Torah you have to listen to. Whatever it tells you, right and left, believe. But the Sifri, the Midrash, goes somewhere different. Even if it tells you right, left is right, and right is left. Rebbe Nathan goes further. What? That we're talking about the emunat chachamim. That where is the Torah fulfilled by? It's by the tzaddik and by the Talmidei chachamim. Because we do not know how to fulfill the Torah except by means of the Talmid chacham. Of course, because everything in the Torah left very vague, so that we can expound upon it in Halacha, of course, the Gemara, Torah, Shabbat, Mishnah, and Gemara.
So the judges appointed were the tzaddikim?
That's a little bit different. It's at the beginning. We're actually going to see how that actually is emet, according to the words of the Ari. That what do the judges mean? But on this inyan of the idea of following, do not stray left or right, Rabben was saying this refers to the tzaddik. That when the tzaddik tells you something that might not make sense whatsoever, believe him, because he knows what's right. And even though you think right is left and left is right, it's because you have everything flipped around. Because you do not know the way it looks. You think the world is supposed to look like this, and you think it's supposed to make sense like this. You don't know what makes sense, you don't know what doesn't make sense. And the second you don't know is the second you begin to really know. So look what Rebbe Nathan teaches us in Nikud Alachot. A person needs to seek out and to beg and plead Hashem Yitbarach a lot. This is exactly what you called me yesterday, which is the hashgacha that I knew we should talk about this, because it's about lesson 49. When you called me about this inyan, and I didn't know how to answer it. And look at this. A person has to beg Hashem Yitbarach, to beg him on how to know, that he should give you the merit to know how to engage, how to conduct yourself with regard to the inyan of tzimtzum and itlavut. How to constrict yourself and to constrict your passion. We know that the main thing is to yearn for Hashem Yitbarach, right? But Rabbeinu also says that your yearning goes ensof, it goes infinitely. You yearn for Hashem Yitbarach in a way that is infinite. Because you cannot put the amount of yearning you have in a number. Because your soul is a piece of Hashem Yitbarach, the fact that you're yearning for Hashem is infinite because you have a piece of the infinite one within you. So your yearning for Hashem is infinite. We know this, each and every person who truly desires to draw close to Hashem, that you're dying to draw close to Hashem, and He did not give you a break, right? Or you feel like Hashem is putting this thing in front of you, that thing in front of you. That's the gift of Hashem, because He's telling you that He cannot have you longing for Him in an infinite manner, in a manner that has no bounds and limits. He needs you longing for Him in bounds and limits. Tzimtzumim, midot, yamin. What we call, Rabbeinu says in lesson 49, he needs you to long for him in a place of constriction. It's what Rabbeinu said in his last words. As they were putting him on the bed, as he was about to pass away, Rabbeinu said 2 words before he passed away. Le'at, le'at. Slowly, slowly. Those were his last 2 words. Of course, Rabbeinu doesn't do that. He wasn't telling them, put me slowly, slowly on the bed. That's pshat. We're talking about sod here. You know? So, Rabbeinu is saying, the main inyan is to go slow. Behadraga or midat, that's the language used. Behadraga means madrega, level by level. Umida, and measure by measure, step by step. Don't push your boundaries. Pen yersu lirot Hashem. Lirot Hashem. Rabbeinu at the Torah, where he says that why did Hashem create a fence around Har Sinai and Matan Torah? Because he knew there's so much light. When a Jew sees light, all he wants to do is to hug it, to kiss it, and to jump on it. But what's the problem? If you don't have bounds and limits, then you're going to break your vessel. Because you can only contain so much. So, Rebbe Nathan says to understand how to yearn for Hashem Yitbarach and yet to constrict your yearning, this you have to beg Hashem Yitbarach to understand, because it's such a deep paradox in the sense that you have to yearn for Hashem and yet at the same time you have to tell Hashem Yitbarach that I need to constrict my yearning.
So you're begging for that basically
to understand how to engage in this practice of yearning while at the same time performing mitzvot in simplicity. Because a lot of the time you can yearn, but you don't know how to perform. Because the yearning is so big, all you want to do is expire. Yeah, it's like exactly. It's like a kavanot. Exactly.
Wow.
So, understanding how to do this, that's the main avodat Hashem. Because you want to yearn for Hashem Yitbarach in a way that is infinite, right? You want to be close. You want to be a tzaddik. Each and every person who truly desires Hashem wants to be a tzaddik. But how to constrict that in avodat Hashem, that's where it gets tough, because you can yearn to become a tzaddik, but you get so discouraged by the yearning that you're so far, that you don't even know how to act. You don't even know you forget to do a mitzvah. You're not even down to go to minyan anymore because you have so much yearning to attain that this is not enough for you, or whatever it is. That's the beauty of Rabbeinu, to say be happy with the little bit that you have. And to do, azamna means literally to perform a small action, to be the simcha with the small action that you do. Because that's exactly the way Rabbeinu says you draw close to Hashem and become a tzaddik. Because the only way to become a tzaddik is to constrict that yearning into good action, as Rabbeinu teaches us in lesson 49. Because that yearning is infinite. But you have to understand that yearning, you need to make sure it doesn't go out of bounds. How do you make sure it doesn't go out of bounds? By performing mitzvot, simple avodat Hashem. Going to the mikveh whenever it's time. Going to Previnyan in simplicity. Reading the tefillot b'kavanah. In simplicity, just translating the words, Not going crazy, not trying to do kavanot and this and that. In everything in simple fashion. And to be happy with the simple mitzvot that you do. So Rebbe Nathan says, you have to beg Hashem that He gives you the merit to know how to conduct yourself with the inyan of tzimtzum, constricting yourself, and itlav, with yearning and fire for Hashem. Because they're contradictory. They're both two opposites. But the truth is they work together in the most beautiful fashion. Because it's certain, Rebbe Nathan says, that you need to yearn for Hashem with an intense desire and passion for Hashem. This is obvious. You have to have that. Right? You have to have the fire within you to serve Hashem. But nonetheless, what you need to constrict that yearning, that it shouldn't pass the level which you're at. The yearning that you have, the yearning that you should have, should be at the level in which you stand.
Yeah, how do you know?
That's the problem. We don't know. So you have to pray for it to begin. Look what Rebbe Nathan says though. What the key is, what the piece of advice is. The Arken. Therefore, it's impossible to be Ish HaYisraeli Be'emet. We're not called Bnei Yaakov, we're called Bnei Yisrael. Why? Because the name Yisrael is the higher one, it's the Inyan. That's the true Inyan of Yisrael. Inyan of Yisrael, Yaakov is first the heel. Ekev. Yisrael is the Inyan that you turn the heel into Yisraeli Rosh. From your head. Everything transformed into fighting for it until you get to the place at the head. Those stones which were rejected by the builders, became the rosh of the pina, the pinnacle of the structure essentially. Meaning what? The entire point is that you transform that negativity into positivity. You attain a new level. You have to go from level to level. Never say that I'm happy where I am. You constantly push the boundary, and yet at the same time you say, the little bit I do, I'm good with also. There's an insane balance about that is very difficult to understand what is emet and what is not. Because you can make excuses a lot of the time and say, I'm good with where I am. But also at the same time, you need to do that when you're falling into certain places. To be the simcha with the little bit that you do. The balance is very difficult to understand. Lesson 6 has a secret to the balance. When you're running close to Hashem and you feel close to Hashem, you have to understand you have a long way to go. The yearning has to continue rising up. Whenever you're very low, you have to understand how to constrict that yearning and to say, Hashem, I'm very happy with what I have. With the little bit that I do. Hashem, I'm very happy that I went to the mikveh today. Or I put on my tefillin and I read Shema. The simple mitzvot that we do has so much koach, but yet sometimes that can be towards your advantage or disadvantage, depending on whether you're actually sincere or not. Of course, very difficult to understand when you're in this situation. Do I make an excuse? Am I making an excuse for myself, or am I actually consoling myself? It becomes very tough. But Rebbe Nathan's saying, this is the entire problem we're talking about. So it's impossible to be a true Isha Yisraeli. Isha Yisraeli means Kisarita. Okay, why was Yaakov called Israel? Because he fought. It's impossible to be a true Jew, which means to fight. The only way you can be a true Jew is by fighting, essentially. So it's impossible to be a true, honest Jew. And that's the key. To understand how to engage in yearning for Hashem, while at the same time having the constriction of being able to do simple avodat Hashem. That what? You have to draw yourself close to the true tzaddikim. And they will teach you the way in which you need to go and the actions that you need to do. When you open up the Sfarim of the true tzaddikim, they tell you exactly the way you need to go. And what do the tzaddikim do in the best way? They teach you and they guide you in the way of how to perform avodat Hashem according to the level in which you stand. With the yearning that you need to have according to the level in which you are at. Not something out of bounds. Not something out of bounds. And this is what it says in the Torah. You cannot stray from the matter that the Torah tells you left or right. Because the truth is, if you try to listen to yourself and not the Torah and the chachamim, you're going to go out of bounds. You're not going to know where your limits are. So the chachamim, the tzaddikim, they know how to constrict that light properly according to each and every person at the level that he stands at. So that the man does not stray too much to the right or too much to the left, too far out of bounds or too little that he's not yearning enough. Because Rebbe Nathan said you can be mistaken to think that now that we have the Torah which gives us this ability to understand constricting yourself while yearning, you can say, I'll pick up the Torah on my own and understand how to do it on my own. But Rebbe Nathan says, even though Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the Torah already, which is the entire Torah, Rabbeinu teaches us like this, the entire Torah is in itself, what? It's in itself midot, it's in itself traits, it's in itself constriction, tzimtzumim, it's in itself minimizing the light, it's in itself what? Tzimtzumim hakdoshim. These holy constrictions which give you the ability to understand everything and how to do it properly, not go too far out of bounds, not out of bounds at all, essentially. To yearn for something while also at the same time not yearning too much. Rabbeinu says that even though the Torah possesses that quality which gives you the understanding and the clarity on how to engage in this, nonetheless, because the Torah gives you the ability to accept the infinite light of Hashem Yitbarach. It gives you the ability on how to accept that infinite light, and constrict it according to the vessel which you have. Nonetheless, do not be mistaken. Every single generation, we need the wise men of the generation, the tzaddikim of the generation. Why? That they should explain to us the Torah with their wisdom, with their holy wisdom. Because their wisdom isn't blemished. And by the fact that their wisdom is not blemished, especially when you talk about the tzaddik ha'emet, the true tzaddik, the tzaddik yesod olam, if their wisdom isn't blemished, then essentially they have the koach to be able to constrict the infinite light of the Torah, which is the light of Hashem Yitbarach. We say, Oraita Yisrael v'kudsha b'ruchu kol achad. The Torah, Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are one. It says in the Zohar, which means Hashem Yitbarach is infinite, the Torah is infinite. Then Yisrael are also in the aspect of the infinite because they minimize themselves. So what? The Torah is infinite. It possesses this infinite light. And you're yearning for that infinite light. But you have to make sure not to go out of bounds. You have to yearn for something holy, but to make sure that what? Your yearning isn't too much. That you don't go out of bounds. So the Torah possesses that quality. It teaches you how to do avodat Hashem, simple avodat Hashem, to serve Hashem in simplicity, even though you're yearning for the greatest things. Yeah, you're yearning to aim for the stars, right? To become a massive tzaddik. But at the end of the day, you yearn to become a massive tzaddik, and at the same time, you're still going to perform the simple avodat Hashem, the same kriyat shema that you do like a person who doesn't even know how to read. Because that's what Hashem Yitbarach wants. According to the level that you're at, you yearn, but at the same time, when it comes to the action, you do the action that is corresponding to the vessel that you possess. So, Rabbeinu says that the Torah has this infinite light. It gives you the ability to understand how to engage with the infinite, to yearn for the infinite, while at the same time performing the mitzvot of the Torah in simplicity. But the chachamim are the ones that explain the Torah. And without the chachamim, without the tzaddik, you cannot have the Torah. Don't think for 1 second you can attain Torah without attaching yourself to the tzaddikim. So what? Only the chachamim hakdoshim hem yodim lilmod imanu. They know how to teach us. They study with us. That's the chidush Rebbe Nathan says. Lilmod imanu. It didn't say lamed otanu, to teach us. He said lilmod imanu, to study with us. Because the tzaddik, that's the beauty. The tzaddik doesn't teach you from here and he brings it here. The tzaddik descends to your level and he brings that which is here and he comes down with it to your level. That's the chidush. The tzaddik is a rea v'chaver. It's funny, I was reading this chidush earlier, I think it was yesterday. There's only one person who's a rea and a chaver. A friend and a person who's a companion to you. You know what it is? It's the tzaddik. Because only the tzaddik can look at you, know the level that you're at, and descend and lower himself so that he can engage with you at the level at which you stand. That's the beauty of the tzaddik. When you come to the tzaddik, you look at the tzaddik in your eyes because you have vision that is according to your vessel, you know? Some people have worse prescription than others. You look at something in a different way than someone else does. So the way that you look at the tzaddik the tzaddik is going to reflect that same vision back to you. He's going to confirm that vision with you according to the way you look at it. But someone who's much higher than me, will look at the tzaddik in a totally different fashion, and the tzaddik's going to engage with him in a totally different way. It's like when Rabbi Nachman was in the last few months before he passed away. He was in Uman, and there were the philosophers who were running the town of Uman. These philosophers were Jews who essentially went off the path, went off the derech, and denied Hashem Yitbarach. They made a vow, they made a neder, to never say the name of Hashem Yitbarach in their lifetime. Rabbi Nachman entered one of the homes of these philosophers. That Friday night, he said, this is the first time we're going to recite the name of Hashem on a kiddush. The first time the name of Hashem will be mentioned in this house will be tonight when I say kiddush. Can you imagine? Jewish people who denied Hashem Yitbarach to the point where they do not even want to say the name. They have so much conviction in their denial of Hashem that to suppress any doubts, what are they going to do? They're going to make a promise not to say the name of Hashem, to force themselves not to believe in God. It's like they still have the doubt, but they're going to force themselves not to believe. Why? By making the vow not to say Hashem's name. Can you imagine how crazy and how stubborn and evil you have to be to do that? And yet, when these three philosophers came to Rabbi Nachman, who were running the town, and saw his immense wisdom, Rabbi Nachman didn't engage with them the same way he didn't engage with his students. When he was speaking with Rabbi Nathan said that he experienced things with Rabbeinu that no man had ever experienced. He said, if we received from Rabbi Nachman or received, and if the Zohar was received by Rabbi Abba and all the students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the way that they received it, meaning that they received the Zohar and we received the teaching of Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nathan says that we received way, way more than the students of Rabbi Shimon received. So imagine what Rabbi Nathan experienced firsthand whenever he stands before Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Nachman brings him into the room and teaches him the secret of a book, which he says not any single person in the generation can understand this book. Only a person who's intelligent in all the 7 wisdoms, and a person who's a complete tzaddik and lamdan. A person who's a tzaddik and understands the entire Torah Sheba'al Peh, and Torah Sheba'al Peh. Rabbi Nachman was writing secrets with Rabbi Nathan that expanded beyond any other wisdom that's ever been brought down. And yet what? When Rabbi Nachman comes before these people, you know what he starts doing with them? He starts playing chess. And Rabbi Nathan and the main student, one of the other main students, Rabbi Naftali, they come before Rabbeinu and they say, Rabbeinu, what are you doing playing chess with these people? He said, what do you mean, what am I doing playing chess? With you I build worlds, and with them I play chess. Meaning what? What's the idea of the tzaddik? The tzaddik, you want to know who's someone who's a true tzaddik? Someone who's able to descend to the level which you are at and converse with you where you stand. Not someone who's here and stays here when he converses with someone here. Because the true tzaddik knows how to descend. So he's a true re'ah v'chaver. Only the true tzaddik is a re'ah v'chaver. Only the true tzaddik is a true friend and companion, because only he has the ability and the understanding on how to descend and engage with a person at the level which they stand. That's a level that is extremely, extremely high. That Rabbi Nachman says only exists with few tzaddikim. Simply because what? Because people think, and they make a mistake, oh, he's a true tzaddik, he doesn't know this world at all. Rabbi Nachman says, do not be fooled for 1 second. The true tzaddik has an understanding of this world that not any other person knows this world about. Meaning that he can engage in this world and understand the reality of the world that no other person has the ability to comprehend. Meaning even the people who you think are big gashmiut, who do all their things, who follow all their desires, and who are really in this world, this physical world, do not understand the world even to the hair's breadth in the same way that the tzaddik understands this world. Why? Because the tzaddik is a master of reality. And why is he a master of reality? Because to become a tzaddik, you have to descend time and time again. Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. The tzaddik falls 7 times and he gets back each time. Rabbeinu goes further than that. He says, Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. Take the last letters of this phrase. Sheva, you have ayin, yipol lamed, tzaddik, kuf, v'kam, mem. Mix them around. The safet tevot of that phrase, the last letters of that phrase, is Amalek. Why? The tzaddik has to fall into Amalek's territory time and time again. Which is, Amalek is Ragamor, it's complete evil. In the place of Amalek, you cannot even find the good. The tzaddik falls there and he finds the good. So the tzaddik understands Amalek more than you understand Amalek. And even though you think you're in the world of Esav, you're engaged in all your desires, the tzaddik understands this world more than you will ever understand it. And that's who's a true tzaddik. Rabbi Nachman says, don't be fooled in thinking that a true tzaddik is one who separates himself from the world. The true tzaddik knows how to engage in the world more than anyone else. So when we're talking about here a person, like this tzaddik that we're talking about here, that you should attach yourself to a true tzaddik or a tzaddikim who know how to engage with where you stand. We're talking about someone who knows how to take your yearnings, understands how much you want to be a tzaddik, and tells you, stay strong where you are. Rabbi Nathan, you know how he came to Rabbi Nachman? Rabbi Nathan was the student of Rebbe Nathan of Breslov. Of course, the great Hasidic master. Rabbi Nathan of Breslov was one of the biggest tzaddikim of the generation. Rabbi Nachman said that Rabbi Nathan of Breslov was the officer of all the world. Just to show you the level of influence that this tzaddik had, the tzidkut, the righteousness that he had. Rabbi Nachman spoke very highly about Rabbi Nathan of Breslov, and vice versa. Rabbi Nathan of Breslov, this tzaddik, had a student, Rabbi Nathan. Rabbi Nathan didn't know of Rabbi Nachman yet. He was searching from tzaddik to tzaddik to find his path. Because Rabbi Nathan grew up in a house of mitnagdim, in a place which were very opposed to Chassidut. His father-in-law was a massive opposer to Chassidut. And not because he didn't believe in their Torah. His father-in-law was a very big tzaddik. Rabbi Nachman said he was a very big tzaddik. His father-in-law was so big. You know how he used to sleep? His father-in-law used to hold a candle in his hand. And when the candle used to run out, the wax used to hit his hand, the fire used to hit his hand, he used to wake up. That's how he used to sleep. He never had a permanent sleep. He never used to sleep in his bed. He used to sleep on his chair with the candle in his hand. And when the candle would burn him, he'd get up and learn again. That's the way he used to study. His father-in-law was such a big tzaddik, he was so afraid to do netilat yadayim, he never did netilat yadayim. Only for the mitzvah of Shabbat, he used to do it in a way that was very strict according to the halakha, following every single minute detail. He never used to do netilat yadayim during the week. You know what he used to eat? Pat b'kisnin. He used to eat like things that were breads that were made with sugar and stuff like that, and cheese and stuff like that. And he didn't need to do hamotzi on, because he was so afraid of doing the mitzvah of netilat yadayim wrong. Wow. That there's so many intricate details. So Rabbi Nathan said about his father-in-law, he said, before I met Rabbeinu, I looked at my father-in-law and I did not know the difference between him and Moshe Rabbeinu. That's how big he was. And we're talking about a minaget here. His father-in-law became a minaget in the Poder Chassidut because he went to one chassid. He loved the Torah so much, and he visited another chassid who loved the Torah so much, and he found out they were arguing with each other. And he said, how can they argue with each other? The both of what they're saying is incredible. And he said, from this point on, by the fact that they're arguing with each other, I don't want nothing to do with chassidut. And he went against. But Rabbi Nathan didn't feel the passion. Rabbi Nathan was 16. He knew Shas, he knew Torah, Shabbat, Halacha. He was a master of everything. He was supposed to become Abbedin. You know what that means? To be the head of the court of that region in Eastern Europe and Ukraine. He was supposed to take over his father-in-law. That's why his father-in-law chose him. When his father-in-law went to choose a husband for his daughter, he went to the cheder. He walked into the room. Rabbi Nathan was 13 at the time. He got married at the age of 13. He walked in the room, he saw Rabbi Nathan, and he said, he's not the smartest, but he has the biggest shoulders. He can contain a lot more than anyone else. It says about Rabbi Nathan that when he was studying Torah, all the other students used to ask nice questions and everything. And when the teacher used to come to Rabbi Nathan, he said, do you have any questions? He said, no, I don't have any questions. The Torah, you know what I mean? I don't have anything. And it was pleasant in the eyes of the teacher that the Rabbi Nathan, not having questions, was better than all the other nice questions of all the students. Why? Because the simplicity of Rabbi Nathan, since the second he was born, was towards this goal of finding Hashem. Rabbi Nathan was a kid, he used to grow up in shul. And he used to grow up in shul, you always used to see this old person, he always used to sit on the knees of this old person that he always used to go to at shul. You know, you always see that young kid at shul, always runs to that random person across the hall with the candy. It's the same way. Except he wasn't running to candy, he was running to learn Torah with this old person. 3-4 years old. And when the old person passed away, Rabbi Nathan didn't know what the inyan of passing away was. He was still a child. So he went to his father, he said, what's this? Where is the old man? He said, he's not here. What do you mean he's not here? That he passed away. He's like, what do you mean he passed away? You leave this world. So Rabbi Nathan said, so what? You come to this world to leave it? From that point on, Rabbi Nathan knew that this world is worthless. Everything that you're here in this world for is for the final purpose of the world to come. It was at that moment Rabbi Nathan understood the purpose. So Rabbi Nathan, you know how he came to Rabbeinu? He was the writer of Rabbi Nathan of Breslov, writing parts of Kedushat Levi. And what? One Saturday night, Rabbi Nathan of Breslov, he tells all the students, go grab bagels from the bagel factory, whatever it is. Go grab bagels, and we're going to do milava maka. We're going to do seudah and bread. Who did they find out? Who's going to go pick it up? They spin the bottle. All the students are in a circle, they spin the bottle. Whoever it lands on goes to pick up the bagels. Who does it land on? Rebbe Nathan. Rebbe Nathan gets up, goes, and he starts crying on the way. He says, Hashem Yitbarach, did I come to this world to go pick up bagels? He walks into the shul, takes a detour, goes to the Ezrat Nashim, goes to the women's section of the shul, picks up Tehillim and starts reading. Starts crying, Tehillim after Tehillim. Reaches Tehillim 50, falls asleep. As he's falling asleep, he has a dream. And in the dream, he sees himself climbing a ladder, one rung at a time. He climbs one rung, he falls. So he picks himself back up and he starts climbing the ladder again. Climbs the ladder again, goes higher, falls. And he does this time and time again. Until what? He's about to reach the top of the ladder. And at the top of the ladder, he sees a face. And the face is telling him what? Nasare, hold on. He's saying, keep climbing, but hold on tight. Keep climbing, keep reaching, but hold on tight. And Rebbe Nathan wakes up. Never recognized his face before. But remember the dream. It happened to be that a few months later, one of Rebbe Nathan's friends was visiting came back to town, as he just went back from a trip to Breslov, the city of Breslov, the town of Breslov. And who was in the town of Breslov? Rabbi Nachman was just visiting. Rabbi Nachman had just moved to Breslov, and Rabbi Lipa, who was Rabbi Nathan's friend, had just heard that this big Hasidic master came to Breslov. He wanted to visit him. And Rabbi Nathan sees Rabbi Lipa, who was an older Hasid. He used to pray like very still, not any enthusiasm. Now Rabbi Lipa goes to shul Saturday and he starts praying with fire. He's moving. Rabbi Nathan said, where'd you get this from? He says, over there in Breslov, I went to visit this tzaddik. So he says, then I should pay a visit. He pays a visit, and who did he see? The same face that he saw in the dream. And in the same face that he saw in the dream, the second he comes to Rabbi Nachman tells him, you may not recognize me, or we may not have seen each other, or he said like this essentially, we may not know each other, but our souls have known each other for a long time. And I've been waiting for this moment. And from that point on, Rabbi Nathan engaged in this inyan of a Talmud, of a true student. So what? What happens? Rabbi Nathan continues in this inyan. So we see here this idea that what Rabbeinu was saying. We're going to see here this idea of attaching yourself to tzaddik. That why is it that we rely on the wisdom of the tzaddikim and the chachamim? Simply because they know how to teach with us. They know how to study with us. The tzaddik descends to the level. He studies with us. And he explains to us the Torah with a proper explanation, with a good clarification. So that we can accept the Torah, which is infinite, according to the vessel and the level that we have. Meaning Torah is infinite, but we need to bring the Torah into our vessel. And these are the fences that we create, that all the chachamim create every single generation, to create certain fences and certain boundaries around the Torah. Why? So that we make sure that the Torah that we receive is according to the level that we stand on. And this is something huge that Rabbeinu emphasizes on a lot. And this is also brought down in the Arizal Parashat Shoftim. That if you take the first verse of Parashat Shoftim, shall place Shoftim, judges, and Shoftim and officers at all your gates. And the Arizal explains that what does it mean to have Shoftim and Shoftim at all your gates? What are the gates? The openings on their face. But you have to make sure that all the openings of your face have judges and officers. Your eyes, that means what? That which you see. Your ears, that which you hear. Your mouth, that which you speak. Look what he says here. The smell of it, the fragrance that you take in. And the final thing is shar hamishush, the gate of touching, of feel, sensation, which are the feet and the hands. That a person tzarich ha'adam she'asim lo shoftim v'shotrim b'chol elu ha'sharim hanizkarim le'el. That a person needs to place officers, guards, around all these fences. around all these gates. Sorry. You need to place fences around all these gates to make sure that what? Your eyes aren't seeing something evil. Your ears aren't listening to Lashon Hara, listening to something that isn't good. That you're smelling something proper. What does that mean, smelling something proper? Rabbi Nachman explains that reach, the nose, is associated with Yirat Shamayim. V'haricho beYirat Hashem. We say about the Mashiach that he will breathe with Yirat Hashem, with the fear of Hashem. So what? What's reach, the nose, the fragrance? It's all Yirat Hashem. You have to guard your Yirat Shamayim. Make sure that your Yirat Hashamayim doesn't fall. The mouth, make sure that what? That you don't speak Lashon Hara. That you don't say words of evil. Turn off the air if you want. That you don't say words of evil or something like that. And the final thing is your hand. That you make sure to touch things that are kodesh. Pick up holy sfarim, things like this. All these things are gates that we need to guard. And why these things? Because these are all vessels. Rabbi, the Arizal is explaining that what? The main thing is to create your vessel. When you guard all these things, and you make sure that what? That you're putting guards and officers around all these gates, that's how you ensure your vessel, your kli is built properly. Because if you want to accept the Torah the way we just explained it, the only way to do so is to put guards and officers at the gates. Which gates? The gates of what you call it? Of the apertures of the face, and the gates of sensation, etc. To make sure that you don't breach the boundaries and you don't break your vessel. Why? Because you can look at something evil, God forbid, and that breaks your vessel. All of these things are a way to perceive your vessel, to enhance your vessel, so that you can accept more Torah, you can accept more Avodat Hashem. Everything is a game about vessel. This is the entire Kabbalah. Anyone wants to understand the Sod, wants to start entering the Sod, is all an idea of understanding how the vessel works. Everything Hashem Yitbarach created was with vessels. The 10 emanations of Hashem, the 10 sfirot, which we call, 10 sort of attributes of God, are all vessels of Hashem. The reason why this world was created was because the vessels were shattered. Everything's a game of vessels. And how to create your vessel is all dependent on how you guard this, the face, which represents the menorah Rabbi Nachman teaches us in lesson 21 of Likutei Moharan. And what? Also the hands, the feet. How you engage with the world. Anything that is action. So all this stuff is a way to prevent us from sinning and to enhance our vessels so that what? We can essentially attain what Rabbi Nathan was saying here, which is to accept the infinite light of the Torah. But that's all dependent upon how many officers you put at the gates. So what do we say? Pitruli sharet tzedek, avovam odeka. Pitruli sharet tzedek. That's what the Arizal explains here. Or he says what? Pitruli sharet tzedek. Pitruli sharet tzedek. The beautiful midrash that explains that. Al tikre sharet tzedek, ela sharet tzadik. Do not read it sharet tzedek, the gates of righteousness, but rather read it sharet tzadik, the gates of the tzaddik. The tzaddik is the one who opens up the gates. Meaning what? That when you attach yourself to the tzaddik, he's essentially the one who guards the gates for you. He's going to give you the ability to understand how to guard the gate. Because the Torah has all the advice on how to guard the gates for you. You know? It gives you all the advice on how to place officers at the gates of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the hands, all these things. But the way to get that is through the tzaddik. Because when you come to the chachamim, only the chachamim know how to interpret the Torah. You cannot come to the tzaddik, you cannot come to the Torah and understand how to put on tefillin by just reading the Torah Shebirtav. The only way you can understand how to put on tefillin is with the Torah Shebirtav. When you go to the Gemara. Go to the Gemara Menachot. It teaches you over there that you can actually have space for 2 tefillin. So the Arizal brings down over there that what? A person can wear 2 tefillin at the same time. Only with the Arizal will you understand that it's possible to wear 2 tefillin at the same time. Because up until the Arizal, that was not heard of. The tzaddikim bring you the ability to perceive the Torah in the way that it's emet. So if you try to perceive the Torah on your own, you fall into a bad place because you're going to stray left and right. This is what it says in the verse that we're talking about here. Do not stray from the matter which it tells you left or right. And this is where we continue about this idea of attaching yourself to the tzaddik and this beruch, this clarification. So look what he says here. Look what Rebbe Nathan brings in Likutei Arachot to continue with this inyan, with this subject. Afilu omer lecha, as it says over there in Rashi brings this down from the Midrash, even if the Torah tells you left is right and right is left, believe the Torah. Because what you think you know is wrong. Even if the Torah tells you something that makes no sense, believe it. That's of course very difficult because we all come with our sophistication. So the main thing is what? To get rid of that sophistication and have simple faith. Especially in the chachamim, which are human, you know what I mean? They're human. So we think sometimes we know better than the chacham. We know better than the tzaddik, who might give us a piece of advice, but that advice doesn't seem proper according to where we stand. So Rabbeinu is saying that what? That which the chacham and the tzaddik tells you, believe him. Because he knows right from left and left from right. So what you think is left and what you think is right is wrong. So, Rebbe Nathan continues. כי בכל דור ודור צריכים לברר ברורים להעלות הטוב מן הרע שנתערבו על ידי חטא עץ הדת שאכל אדם הראשון. Every single generation, we need to rectify the world by how? By separating the good from the evil. You know what the problem with the sin of Adam was? When he ate from the tree? The tree is called Etz Hadat Tov V'Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree was meant to separate good and evil, but by the fact that Adam HaRishon ate from the tree early, he was supposed to wait till Shabbat. He was supposed to do Kiddush on the wine on Shabbat. But by the fact that he ate early, a few hours early, those 3 hours, he damaged good and evil. What did he do? He mixed them together. He put them in a pot, and you cannot distinguish. You cannot make a distinction between what is good and what is evil. You come before something, a situation. You do not know what is right from wrong. You have lack of clarity. That's what we call lack of clarity. Everybody has lack of clarity, and the reason is because of the sin of Adam HaRishon. And because we haven't purified ourselves. Rabbi Nachman is explaining that when you purify yourself, you're clean. Of course, you get rid of the evil within you. Sur merat, you get rid of the bad. And then you perform ba'asetov, the good actions. You're essentially able to purify the good from the evil, to understand where the good and the evil lies. So that you know what is good, what is not good. Rabbi Nachman said, you want to know what the main action is of attaining this? Study halakha. Why? Because halakha, the code of Jewish law, essentially teaches you what is good and what is not good. It makes it distinguish between good and evil. So, Rabbi Nachman is explaining that what? The sin of Adam HaRishon was meant to damage this inyan of good and evil by putting them together so that you do not know where it is. So what? Through the sin of Adam HaRishon, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, essentially good and evil has been mixed together. And the only way to clarify the good from the evil, to purify one from another, is by attaching yourself to the true tzaddik. Why? Because only the true tzaddik is at a level in which he nullifies all the evil so that all he remains left with is good. Meaning that his entire vessel is kadosh. And if his entire vessel is kadosh, he can look at someone else and give you the piece of advice that you need. So when you come before a true tzaddik, I'm talking about a true tzaddik here. When you come before a true tzaddik and he tells you what is right is left and left is right, it's because he knows what is good and what is evil. But because we're so mixed together with good and evil, we do not know the distinction between good and evil. We do not know what's good for us. Because our entire vessel is blemished to begin with. So when you come to the true tzaddik of each and every generation, that means that Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and Arizal, Bar Shem Tov, these tzaddikim that are at this caliber, that can give you the advice through their books, just by picking up their book. You don't even need them in person. You pick up the book, they tell you everything. When you pick up the book, the Sefer, you have the advice. I cannot tell you how many times, and this happens across anybody who studies Torah, at least a little bit, Hashem Shemayim, to the best of their ability. You'll pick up a Gemara, and what you studied in Musar an hour before, it will happen in the Gemara. You'll pick up a Gemara, you're studying Masechet Kiddushin, you're going to study in Masechet Kiddushin how lesson 6 of what we just studied in Likutei Moharan was applicable to, and how it works perfectly. The nuances are right in hand with each other. You're going to see how when you study, the tzaddik is illuminating you with advice. The Gemara that you're picking up, the halakha of Shulchan Aruch that you're picking up is perfectly relevant to the situation you're in. You don't even need a person. We get so dependent on people literally in front of you, this, that. The Sefer is in itself is literally coming to teach you what you need to do. We just don't believe enough in the Sefer. Now, yes, it's one thing to listen to this, to study this from the Sefer, or to visit the tzaddik. Rabbi Nachman said there's a big distinction. Of course, it's good to hear a Torah from a tzaddik, to visit a tzaddik, to see a tzaddik's face. But the advice is already here. Do not think for 1 second that you do not have a piece of advice because the tzaddik vessel, because Moshe Rabbeinu down here, we can't fix anything. The beauty is that when the tzaddik leaves, that's when he accomplishes more. גדולים צדיקים במיתתם יותר מבחייהם. It's in the Gemara Chulin, Daf Zayin, that what? The tzaddikim are bigger in their death than in their lifetime. Which means what? They're able to accomplish more with the person, the individual reading their book, than they were able to do it while they were still alive. It's a paradox. We think it's the exact opposite. They're able to do more in their death because they're not limited by the body anymore. Their neshama is able to expand beyond time and space in ways that we cannot even comprehend, imagine. So Rebbe Nachman's explaining here that we need the true chachamim, the true tzaddikim, to give us the ability to distinguish between good and evil. Because simple people, ordinary people that haven't merited true teshuvah yet, they themselves are still in the aspect of the sin of knowledge of good and evil. So essentially what? They do not have the ability themselves to give themselves proper advice. So Rabbi Nachman says, this is the main idea, that you attach yourself to the true tzaddikim who are able to illuminate you according to the level which you stand, because they get you out of the evil pathway and they bring you into a holy pathway. I'm going to skip a little bit because we're running low on time. And even through the Torah, we do not have the ability to purify the good from the evil. We do not have the ability to understand where the good and the evil is just by studying the Torah. Because we need the chachamim. Try to pick up Gemara and only study Gemara. I assure you that you cannot become a true tzaddik. Because the advice of the Gemara is so in code that we ourselves today, there's not a person today that can pick up a Gemara and understand the depth of the Gemara the way it wants you to understand it in Avodat Hashem. To apply etzot of Avodat Hashem. You can study Gemara all day and Halacha all day, but how to apply the Gemara and the Halacha is impossible to do without the true tzaddikim. Without the later tzaddikim who come to expand the Gemara. It's fact, because today, we see today how weak we are, that we do not understand the Gemara and its source anymore. We need more than the Gemara. We need Sifrei Musa, we need books of Musa. Which means what? That we do not have the koach anymore, even with the Torah Sheba'al Peh, to understand and to deduce from the Torah Sheba'al Peh what we need to do in this world. So we need a true tzaddik who can bring the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the secrets of the Kabbalah, the secrets of the Arizal, and to bring it down to the level which we are at. That's the greater the tzaddik, of course. The greater the tzaddik, the lower he can descend. That's the principle. So what? When you attach yourself to the true tzaddik, who's in every single generation, he gives you the ability to understand how to get rid of the evil within you, so that you don't fall into Etz Hadat Tovara anymore. You go to Etz HaChayim, the tree of life, because you can study the Torah, but it can become a samavet, an elixir, a poison essentially. Zacha. Zacha, what does it say over here? Zacha naseh lo samchayim. When you merit, it becomes an elixir of life for you. When you merit to study the Torah properly, the Torah becomes life, an ability of it becomes a medium for vitality. It becomes a way to attain vitality. Lo zacha naseh lo samavet. If you do not merit, it becomes poison for you. Meaning you can study the Torah and you can use the Torah to become a Rasha. There are even people today, Rabbanim today, they can present themselves with peyot and a beard, but there are people today that look like tzaddikim on the outside and they're complete Rashaim. And we have no ability we have no understanding on how to distinguish this. We have no understanding on the distinction between good and evil simply because of this. Why? Because of course it's very tough to understand where it lies. Today, the Yetzer Hara is so good at its job, it will disguise itself in a person who looks like a tzaddik gamur on the outside. I'm sure Shabtai Tzvi looked like a tzaddik. And yet the Baal Shem Tov said, I'm dying and I have holes in my lungs. I have holes in my lungs simply because of the chachamim who follow the what do you call it? Shabtai Tzvi. The Baal Shem Tov said that the reason why he was dying was because he has literally holes in his body, simply because of the pain that he felt that Shabtai Tzvi had tricked other tzaddikim. Can you imagine how the Yetzer Hara is so low that it can disguise itself into such a dark place where you don't even know it's good or evil anymore? That's the first lesson of Likutei Moharan. That what? That the story of Rabbi Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Chana, a very big amor at the time of the Gemara, a very big sage, an Talmudic sage, was traveling through, was traveling on a ship with many sailors, and on the ship there's a huge storm. And on this storm, he sees a huge wave about to hit the ship, and on the wave there's a white spark at the crest of the wave. What does the Rashbam say over there? It says over there, what's the white ish lebana, the white fire? Malach maziku, it's a damaging angel. Why is the white spark a damaging angel? Because Rabbi Nachman explained that the Yetzer Hara, the damaging angel, can sometimes disguise itself as a white spark in a mitzvah. Sometimes you think you're doing a mitzvah and it's actually evil. It's not good. What's a good example? The lesson we started with tonight. When you're yearning for Hashem Yitbarach, when you're yearning to accomplish great things, but you're not constricting that yearning. Your yearning has no boundaries, has no limits. So essentially, you're yearning for something that you don't stand at. You're shattering your vessel. And when you're shattering your vessel, if you accomplish something that's above you, beyond you, it's no longer holy. It becomes Yetzer Hara. Sometimes a person going to the mikveh can be Yetzer Hara. It's crazy to say. But when you feel like you're drowning yourself in mitzvot and Torah, and it becomes a burden for you to the point where you're losing simcha in it, that extra mitzvah that making you depressed it's not a mitzvah. It's the actual opposite way around. It's an avera. Now it's not to say that doing mitzvot sometimes can be bitter. That's the difficulty. When does the person know whether it's good or not good to do? That's what a person has to pray on all the time. But that's the difficulty in understanding. That's what we have to pray for, to understand that what? That Hashem grants us the knowledge, which is what we started with in Likutei Halachot. How much to yearn for and how much to constrict that yearning. So that what? I can perform simple avodat Hashem. So, we'll finish off with this inyan. And this is where we go to the final mitzvah, what I wanted to talk about tonight, which is what it says here and how we're going to connect it full circle. And connect it to the true tzaddik about what it says here in this week's Parasha. That you cannot have within your midst a person who's a black magician, a person who's a sorcerer, a person performing these strange sort of things to give you a piece of advice or whatever it is. You know those people who read your palms or non kedusha, goyim who you might go to, what do you call it? The sidekicks, right? Whatever they call it, whatever it is. You see all those things across in Melrose or whatever it is. The hands on the window. All that stuff, that's literally this week's Parasha, what it's telling you not to do. Those people who might be giving you bad advice. Superstitions. There's many superstitions. A deer crosses you on the road. Walking under a ladder. All those things which are superstitious, dachei mori, ways of the goyim, all that stuff falls under this category. And Rabbi Nachman is teaching us from this week's Parasha, avoid that stuff and throw it out. But how to do that, we're going to understand right now. Because we have to understand why that stuff exists in the first place. And this is the chidush that honestly I wanted to come to full circle because it's maybe the deepest thing tonight. And one of the deepest things for any single Jew. Because honestly, until I read this here, not a lot of people speak about this. In fact, it's very difficult to speak about this because the concept in itself is so unclear. Look what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about how to ensure the decision that you make is good, even though you don't even know whether it's good or not. But how to ensure, even though you have lack of clarity, that the decision you're about to make, even though you're not sure it's good or not, actually turns out for good. Look at this, because this is all our life. Do I take this job? Do I take that job? Do I marry this girl? Do I say hi to the person across the street? Do I go to this minyan or that minyan? Do I find this rabbi or that rabbi? Every single question that you have, every single lack of clarity that you have, every single doubt that you have, is all transformed for good. As Rabbi Nachman says, Yesh inyan she'yitapech hakol letova. There's an idea that everything will be turned for the good. But how? This is what Rabbi Nathan teaches us right here. It's a chidush. It's a novelty like no other. So what he says, Rabbi Nathan says like this, that all the sorcerers, all the people who do black magic, all those people that are trying to give you pieces of advice by seeing things in constellations and stuff like that, seeing your palm, whatever it is, your forehead, all that stuff when it's not done in Kedusha, because I'm saying there's places that they can do this in Kedusha, there are tzaddikim that can look at you and tell you what's going on, what you ate for breakfast yesterday, what you had for lunch 2 hours ago. There's many people we've come across that know that have this gift. And they do it in Kedusha even. But Rabbi Nathan said you don't even need that. Look at this. So he says all those black magicians, all those sorcerers, all those people, you know where that stems from? The source of that is because there's a lack of doubt, a person's itzah, a person's advice isn't complete yet. He doesn't know what to do. Because if you knew what to do, you wouldn't visit them in the first place. You'd make the decision and be happy. Meaning what? The outcome of the decision you're not sure of. That's the source of everything. All the lack of clarity that we have is because we do not know the outcome of the decision. If you knew what would happen to you, you'd say it's all right. You'd have emunat. Why do we need to have emunat? Because we have no idea what the heck's going to happen to us. If you knew what was going to happen to us, then it's not emunat. Then it's knowledge. Emunat is specifically in the place where you do not know for sure. It's faith. It's in a place where it's not certain. So that's the entire mitzvah of emunat. It's not to know, and it's still to believe. So when Rabbi Nachman says there's an idea that everything will be turned for the good, he means it. But you have to have emunah on that, because you're not sure of it. So, Rebbe Nathan says that there's all these superstitions, right? Or all these people that come do this black magic, all these things that come from the evil side. Person needs to avoid that. And Rebbe Nathan says like this. The main reason why we do not know a piece of advice and what to do in this world, what our task is in this world, is simply because that we're doubtful of what's going to happen to us in the future. If I take this job, what will happen to me in 5 years? Will I be able to provide for my wife? All these questions that we have are because we do not know what will happen. But, so Rabbi Nathan continues on this link. Because anything a person does is only for the reason that the ending should be good, the outcome should be good. The only reason why we do anything is because we think the outcome will be good of that thing. Even the sins that we do, we think the outcome will be good. That's why we do it. A lot of the times, sometimes you think, you know that, okay, the sin isn't good, of course, because the outcome according to the Torah is not good. Of course, the Yitzhak convinces you into that sort of place and you fall into that sin. You know the outcome isn't good, but what? You still do it. Why? Because you still believe that the outcome you're going to get in that moment is good. The pleasure you're going to get in that moment is good. You don't really think. But if a person focuses on the tachlit, what we call the purpose, which is, Rabbeinu says, the world to come, which is why the second a person wakes up, the first thing he needs to think of before he even says Modéani is what? Olam haba. Why? Because everything that you're going to do in Olam Hazeh, in this world, will all have the final purpose and the intention of Olam haba. Meaning that what? Everything will be for the purpose of the world to come. Meaning, you realize that this world, what's it worth? Look at this. I was listening to a shiur, and you guys want to talk about Hashgacha Pratit? I was listening to a shiur on YouTube by a French tzaddik, very special guy, who's speaking about a dibur of Rabbi Nachman, a saying that Rabbi Nachman said. That's crazy. Rabbi Nachman said that, I actually want to pull it up. I'm going to actually pull it up and read from it. Look at this. Because I screenshotted it today. It was so incredible. Hine hakol omrim, behold, everyone says, sheyesh olam hazeh ve'olam haba. That there's this world and the world to come. Everybody said that there's a world like this world, and there's a world to come. Meaning that there's first world, and then there's a world to come. Makes sense, right? Behold, with regard to the world to come, we all believe that there's a world to come. Anyone who has simple emunah, right? Perhaps this world, what we call olam hazeh, this world, exists in some other place. Rabbi Nachman's starting to teach us that what this world, the fact that we think this world is this world, already might be wrong. Look at this. This is crazy. It seems to me that here is Gehenna. This world isn't this world. It shifts everything. And look how it continues. Everybody in this world is filled with suffering and afflictions and pain. Which means this world, the way we say this world is we've already thought that this world is filled with suffering, this and that, but who says this world was meant to be filled with suffering? Maybe this world exists in some other place. Maybe this is Gehenna. And Rabbi Nachman said like this, That's the klal. That's the final thing. This world does not exist at all. Can you imagine what we're talking about here? The fact that we think we can gain something from this world is already a blemish. Because this world doesn't exist. Yes, we're here present in this moment. Of course, the actions that we do will determine the world to come. But this world, the fact that we're saying this world, with the emphasis on this, it's not here, it's somewhere else. This is like Gehenna. Rabbi Nachman said the 24 months that he was suffering with a certain thing, a certain sickness, he was suffering with 2 years already for tuberculosis. After those 2 years, he said, it seems to me that I've served 2 sentences of Gehenna. Why? Because not only was it 11 months of Gehenna, which a person should serve, but I did it twice 11 months. I mean, Ahmad said he did 2 years of this tuberculosis, which he said, I already fulfilled 2 sentences of Gehenna. What the tzaddik has to go through to suffer on behalf of the Jewish people is immense. What Moshe Rabbeinu had to take upon himself was immense. But we see here that this world is filled with suffering for every individual. Every person goes through lack of clarity. That's where a lot of our suffering comes from, that we don't know what's going to happen. So Rebbe Nathan says like this, the main reason why we lack clarity, why we fall into these people, and why we rely on these people for advice, or why the Goyim even have this idea in the first place, is simply because they do not focus, they lack the understanding on what's going to be the outcome of their decision. So look what he says here, and this is where we continue. But one who focuses on the purpose of every single thing, and what's the purpose of everything? To attain the final eternal purpose of everything. Meaning what? Your eternal purpose, the world to come. When you focus on the world to come at the end of all your decisions, that you're going to make the decision for the world to come, one who does a decision like this certainly merits a complete piece of advice. Meaning what? I'm going to continue in the words of Rebbe Nathan. You do not need any other piece of advice from other people when you know this. Can you imagine? You do not need to visit anyone to tell you to do this or that. You do not need to be dictated by someone else. Why? Only on the condition that Rebbe Nathan says here. On the condition that you do not separate yourself from the words of the Torah. Meaning what? Don't go against halakha. Don't go against the Torah. What we just talked about here. Don't stray from the matter left or right. Follow the Torah according to the best of your ability. Right? We follow the Torah. We keep Shabbat. We keep Torah. We keep mitzvot. We eat kosher. We do all the things that we need to do. But as long as you do this and you follow the Torah, that's where, in the place where it gets gray though, where the Torah isn't specifically explicit, when we talk about shidduchim, when we talk about work, when we talk about conversations, family relationships, things where it gets complicated, where the Torah doesn't mention what to do, in that place, the only way to merit proper, true itzah is to make sure that the final intention of your goal that you're doing, the action that you're doing, is for the purpose of the world to come. Meaning what? For Hashem. As long as your intention is in the right place, whether you go left or right, it's all good. That's the key. There is no right or left when your intention is good. The left will become good. The right will become good. The final purpose is what ensures that no matter the decision that you make, it's all good. And I was looking for this piece for a long time, and it came in Likutei Halachot. Look how incredible it is, because it's such a problem that everybody goes through. Everybody wants to have the clarity, of course, that they know that they're doing something right, that they're doing what Hashem wants them to do. That's the question that we cry about all the time. Hashem, am I doing what is right? In any single decision that we make, this is the way to focus on the true tachlit. But how do you do that? Rely on the advice of the tzaddikim. When you rely on the advice of the tzaddikim, you follow their advice, you do what they tell you in simplicity, without asking any questions. Yes, sometimes it means to get rid of your own wisdom. But don't think for 1 second that your wisdom was good to begin with. Because that's the blemish of Etz Hadat Tovera. The da'at of good and evil. Your da'at is mixed with good and evil. The main thing is what? To understand that the tzaddik who doesn't have a good and evil da'at, it's only good. So when we rely on that, Rebbe Nathan says you can ensure that what? That your advice is good. Essentially because your tachlit, your intention for the action that you're doing, whether right or left, will always turn out for good. And this is the last line. When you attach everything to Hashem Yitbarach, as hu tamim Hashem. When you attach everything to Hashem, every decision you make with Hashem, then that's what it means to be tamim in Hashem, to be wholesome with Hashem. What does it say? Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha. You shall be simple and wholesome with Hashem. When you want your advice to actually end up for good, even though it seems like it went the total wrong direction, you took the wrong way across the path. You took the wrong path. You took the wrong job. For 5 years you've been suffering, you haven't been making $1. But you had the intention in the right place. It wasn't for your own honor, you were doing to the best of your ability. When you do it like that, that's all for Hashem. And you can understand, and you can assure yourself that everything Hashem did with you along that journey is for good. That's the secret. That Hashem wants you to engage in the journey, no matter what it is, whether it's right or left. But what? Make a decision with the right intention. When the intention is in the right place, that's the best thing. This is what Rebbe Nathan says, and I'll finish off with this. This is where we end off. When a person wakes up, aside from thinking of the world to come, a good thing to do is say what? Ani moser kol hatnunot sheli al Hashem yitbarach. Say this phrase. I put all my movements on Hashem. That everything I do, whether today's Shabbat, whether today's Yom Tov, whether today's the weekday, everything I do from the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep is on you, Hashem. I'm putting it on you, that you should do whatever you want with me. And that I accept it the way that you want me to accept it. I'm going today with an open mind. Just do it the way you want. Do what you want with me. But when you start the day by saying, Hashem Yitbarach, I'm with you and I want it on you, you already showed Hashem Yitbarach that every single action you're going to do today is what? With the right intention. So imagine the power of doing so, because just from one simple phrase, one word, one line, you can transform every single action you do for good. Which is what, of course, we're all looking for. So, b'zchut all the tzaddikim, b'zchut Rebbe Nathan, all this advice that we're receiving, I hope that B'ezrat Hashem, God can give us the merit to essentially apply this advice. And that emunat Hashem, that everything we do will be for the good.